scattered descriptions on wars against Finland by Finns to neighboring countries prior to the Swedish conquest has survived in Icelandic sagas, German, Norwegian, Danish and Russian chronicles and Swedish legends. The most important sources are Novgorod First Chronicle, Primary Chronicle and Eric Chronicles. Most of the early Finnish wars remain unhistorical and cannot be verified from reliable sources. Conflicts with Swedes. Saga sources. Ynglinga saga tells about the first known military expedition to Finland. Based on saga's internal chronologies, the war presumably took place at the end of the 4th century, 6 generations before the semi-historical Swedish king Oda. However, it is disputed whether the Old Norse concept Finland refers always to the present country of Finland. Alternatively, it could have meant the land of the Sami. It happened one summer that King Agni went with his army to Finland, and landed and marauded. The Finland people gathered a large army, and proceeded to the strife under a chief called Frost. There was a great battle, in which King Agni gained the victory, and Frost fell with a great many of his people. King Agni proceeded with armed hand through Finland, subdued it, and made enormous treasure. Norna jests that Tr Saga tells that Skavens were raiding in Sweden in the mid-8th century. Sigurd Ring was not there, since he had to defend his land, Sweden, since Curonians and Skavens were raiding there. In the late 9th century, King Erik Anundsson was said to have conquered Finland, with several other eastern countries. My grandfather thought he could well remember the Uppsala King Erik Amundsen, and used to say of him that when he was in his best years he went out every summer on expeditions to different countries, and conquered for himself Finland, Karelia, Courland, Estonia, and the eastern countries all around. However, all other accounts of the king exclude Finland from his conquests. German sources. Finland was probably the same as Terra Feminarum, which was attacked by Sweden in the 1050s, as described in Gesta Hammerbergensis Ecclesiae Pontificum by Adam of Bremen in 1075 CE. According to the source, the attack ended in the Swedish defeat, and led to the death of the king's son who was in charge of the campaign. Information on the conflict is, however, convoluted. Medieval Swedish legends. The best-known Swedish war against Finland presumably took place in the 1150s, known as the legendary First Swedish Crusade. Whether it ever actually happened is, however, not certain, as the information is based on the late 13th century legends. Sweden eventually took over Finland during the so-called Second Swedish Crusade around 1249. By the end of the century, records of independent Finnish military activities ceased to surface. Conflicts with Norwegians. Norwegian Oda tells in the Old English Orosius from 890 that Norwegians and Queeners were in conflict with each other from time to time. The Skavens harry the Norwegians across the moor, sometimes the Norwegians them, and there are very many freshwater lakes beyond the moors, and the Skavens carry the ships overland into the moors. Whence they harry the Norwegians, they have very small and very light ships. Legendary Orkneyinga saga tells about Nor who travelled from Kvenland to Norway and took over the entire country. Based on saga's internal chronologies, the war would have taken place on the 6th of 7th century. Another version of the saga, Havasu Norabygdist, however, omits the Kvenland part completely. Saga of Olaf Haraldsson tells how the Saint Olaf himself, the king of Norway, plundered in Finland around 1007 and almost got killed at the battle at Urdala. According to Icelandic chronicles, Skavens were raiding in northern Norway in 1271, then Karelians and Skavens pillaged widely in Halageland. Conflicts with Danes. The vague chronicle entries briefly mention Danish expeditions to Finland in the 1190s and 1202. Nothing is known about the results except what can be read from a papal letter from 1209 to the Archbishop of Lund, which lets the reader understand the church in Finland be at least partly established by Danish efforts. Conflicts with Novgorod, Finnic groups and the Republic of Novgorod waged a series of wars during the 12th and early 13th centuries. They probably contributed to the Finns' eventual subjugation to the Catholic Church and the Kingdom of Sweden. List of early Finnish wars. 4th century. Ynglingan saga tells of campaign by Swedish King Agni to Finland. Finnish army was led a person whose name in saga is translated to Frost. 7th century. Finnish warriors served in the courts of Dänemark and ULAN. 9th century. Story of Norwegian tells of raids done by Skavens to Sweden. Oda of Halagerland tells of skirmishes between Finns and Norwegians. 1008 Battle at Urdala. Olaf II of Norway is defeated by Finns somewhere in Uzumar. 1023 The Prince of Novgorod Vladimir Yaroslavich makes a campaign against Finns. 1142 Finns make a campaign against Novgorod and Ladoga and are defeated. 1143 Karelians attack against Tavastians via sea, but escape after losing 2 ships. 1149 Finns make a campaign with few thousand men against Votes, who is supported by Novgorod with 500 men. 1155 Eric IX and English clergyman Henry make possibly the first Swedish crusade to Finland against Finns proper. 1186 Prince of Novgorod makes a campaign against Finns. 1187 Destruction of Sigtuna. Karelians pillage the city on the 12th of July. The Bishop of Uppsala and the Jarl are killed. 1191 Novgorod and Karelians make a campaign against Tavastians. Danes make a raid to Finland. 1202 Danes make a campaign to Finland which is led by the Archbishop of Lund Anders Sundsson and his brother. 1227 Prince of Novgorod Yaroslav II makes a campaign against Finns. 1228 Finns make a campaign to Ladoga with over 2,000 men. Yaroslav II makes another campaign to Finland. 1240 Battle of the Neva. Swedes, Norwegians, Finns proper and Tavastians makes a campaign against Novgorod. 1249 to 1250 Second Swedish Crusade to Finland against Tavastians. 1253 Karelians raid against Germans in the area of Narva. 1256 Alexander Nevsky makes a campaign to Finland after unsuccessful campaign of Finns proper, Tavastians and Swedes to Narva. 1257 Karelians make a devastating campaign to Sweden which lead Valdemar to ask Pope Alexander IV to start crusade against them. 1271 Karelians and Skavens attack Halagerland in Norway. 1278 Prince of Novgorod Dmitry Alexandrovich decide to punish Karelians by conquering them. 1283 Swedes and Finns make a campaign to Neva and Ladoga area. 1292 Novgorod makes a campaign to Finland. Swedes attack Karelia and Ingria. 1293 Third Swedish Crusade to Finland against Karelians.